Welcome to Moose Plays, everyone. I'm the Liquor Moose, and today we will be going over my Week 2 battle for the 10th season of the UPA. For this week, we will be going up against JackO, coach of the Sootopolis Swamperts. And yeah, this is an in-division match, so even though it's only Week 2, it is pretty important for the playoff race, as the winner of the division will they will get an automatic berth into playoffs. So you always want to try to be ahead of the division, so this game is really important for that. But other than that, both of us are 1-0. Like I've been saying, like pretty much throughout all the other UPA videos this season, the competition is really good, so no one can really afford to slip up at any point, so we definitely both need to try our best. And yeah, so that's about really for the history, because I've never played against JackO, but I know that JackO is a very, very good battler. So, if you want to know more about the team I'm specifically bringing, I did upload a team builder yesterday. I will link it in the description below. But for just a quick overview, we do have a bulky, modest Rotom Heat. We have a stall-breaking Crobat. We have a physically defensive Scizor. We have a Chople Crocodile with Stealth Rocks. We have a defensive Fat Mew, and we have a Perish Trapping Azumarill. Looking at what JackO brought to the table, he brought the Celesteela, the Toxapex, the Mesprit, Shaman, the Gengar, and the Mega Medicham. Not too many surprises here. I can't really say I'm surprised to not see Weavile. I mean, again, I do have Mega Scizor. It's probably the best Weavile response you could ever ask for in the game. So not too surprised about that. But the one thing I am a little surprised at is that there's no ground type. There's three... JackO has 3 ground types on his roster, so that basically gives Rotom Heat very free reign to Volt Switch around, so I'm a little surprised he didn't bring at least one of them. But either way, looking at the lead matchup, like I said, he didn't bring a ground type, so Rotom Heat seemed like a very appropriate lead for me, so I am just going to go ahead and lead with that, as we do see here. And as we see, JackO is actually going to lead with his Mesprit, so I'm anticipating him to set up Rock, so I'm going to click Toxic, and unfortunately I miss, which isn't that big of a deal because because even though he does get up his rocks for free, I don't really know what kind of Mesprit this is. I'm not really too sure what exactly he's going to do, like, past that. Like, I'm not really too sure what his set is. But seeing that I did go for Toxic, I do anticipate him to switch out into either his Celesteela or his... maybe not his Celesteela, but, like, I do anticipate him to switch out potentially into his Toxapex or more likely into his Gengar to try to block the Toxic. So I'm actually going to go for Volt Switch here. As we do see here, JackO actually does stay in, so unfortunately I get that prediction wrong, but I'm going to go into my Scizor to basically try to defog these rocks away, but JackO actually goes for the Toxic, so luckily we do get blocked on that. And the damage on the Volt Switch actually reveals that he is in fact Spidef Mesprit, which is really good information to know. As now, barring he's carrying either Hidden Power Fire if he's special attacking or Fire Punch if he's physical attacking, Mesprit isn't doing a ridiculous amount to me, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to get my rocks, to defog the rocks away. As we see here, JackO does switch into the Toxapex, a pretty, kind of obvious, but like it's a very safe play as, oh my goodness, this Mega Scizor isn't really doing too much to Toxapex. I decided to U-turn out into Crobat as, considering I'm stall breaking Crobat, it's definitely the best thing I have, barring Rotom Heat, to take on this Toxapex, but I need to save Rotom Heat for the Celesteela in the back, since that's the main purpose of that Pokemon this week. But yeah, now that my, now that my stall breaking Crobat's in, I am very free to fire off a Super Fang here to try to basically just take off 50% on this Toxapex, and the only way he's like getting HP back is if he switches. And if he switches, I'm getting 50% off of something else that comes in, which is really good for me. So I'm very free to fire off a Super Fang here, get half of his health back. And JackO actually gets pretty aggressive and goes for a second Toxic. I guess he was probably anticipating me switching into Mew to try to abuse that, but again, like, I have no reason to switch out here. I do have Brave Birds, so Scald Burns might be a little unfortunate. But now that I have 50% off on this, I'm just going straight for Taunt. I don't want JackO recovering. And yeah, we do catch him on the recover, and now JackO's kind of in a hard place because I'm very free to fire off Super Fangs here, and like I said, he could get HP back by switching out his Toxapex, but then he's just giving me 50% on another Pokemon, so JackO's kind of forced to stay in here and basically get his Toxapex whittled down. Unfortunately, on the first Scald that JackO does fire off, he does get the burn, which is a little unfortunate, but not too big of a deal, as again, my main, like, in this match, Crobat's main form of damage output is like most certainly Super Fang, so it's not that big of a deal. As we do see here that his taunt wears off, so I'm anticipating JackO to predict me going for taunt to stop the recovery on Toxapex's part, so I'm actually going to fire off a Super Fang again. to try to get 50% off of something else that wants to switch in. And luckily, as we see here, JackO does actually switch into his Mesprit, but unfortunately we missed the Super Fang. A little tilting, but not too sure how much it would end up playing out. I am going to switch into my Mega Scizor, pardon my mouse, as I'm anticipating him getting his rocks back up, and I want to keep those rocks off the field, so I am going to click Defog once again right here. As we do see here, JackO actually is carrying the HP Fire, which does a decent chunk considering that I am more physically defensive invested rather than specially defensive. And now here, I kind of anticipate JackO to either pivot out. I don't anticipate him clicking Hidden Power Fire again. I expect him to get somewhat aggressive for me to preserve my Mega Scizor, since it's actually, like, barring this Mesprit that has HP Fire, Mega Scizor is actually a pretty big annoyance for JackO's team, so I actually am anticipating him to basically do anything except for click Hidden Power Fire here, predicting me to preserve my Mega Scizor. So I'm actually going to click U-turn, kind of the middle ground play, and if he clicks HP Fire, then I guess that's really aggressive on my part, but we do get a really good chunk off this Mesprit. Unfortunately, it would already be dead if we hit the Super Fang, but that's perfectly fine because we can go out into my Crocodile and we can just Pursuit Trap this thing and kill it from here. As we do see here, we end up going to trap this thing and kill off this Mesprit. So luckily the Super Fang miss didn't matter too much. All it really cost me was 6% like rocks damage off on my Crocodile. And now here, JackO goes into Shaman, and at this point, Crobat and Rotom Heat both take both have to take rocks before taking a potential Seed Flare, so not exactly the best switch-ins at the moment, especially like Rotom Heat maybe only because I'm still at max HP with that thing. Crobat not really because I'm burned and whittled down a little bit. Scizor is way too weak now at this point to take potentially 2 Seed Flares, or even just like 1 Hidden Power Fire if he gets the prediction correct. So realistically, at this point, I have to switch into my Azumarill and reveal that I am Sap Sipper, as it's still a very safe switch in, even though once he sees that I'm taking less damage from, once he sees that I'm Sap Sipper, it'll be very clear that I'm Whirlpool Perish Trapping set, but at the same time, even if it is revealed, he has to pick something that I'm going to Whirlpool trap. So even if I don't Perish Song right away, I can at least trap something with Whirlpool and get a guaranteed switch into the thing that I want to switch into. So I am going to basically show my hand and reveal that I am Sap Sipper Azumarill here. But like we see here, JackO actually doubles into his Medicham, so it was a really good double on his part. I do get the leftovers. Mega Medicham is a really big threat to my team, so I don't really want to play around with it, because even if he clicks Zen Headbutt here, Azumarill's taking a hell of a lot of damage, and even though HP on it doesn't really matter, I guess it kind of does, since it has to stick around for the full 2 turns that I click Perish Song for, because if Azumarill faints before the opponent's Perish Trap is at 1, then they can just switch out the turn after. So I guess I kind of do have to preserve HP on this. But either way, Mega Medicham's a big threat. I'm not messing around with it, so I'm going straight into my Mew. But JackO makes a very, very good double into his Gengar, and Gengar is also looking like a pretty big nuisance. And as well, I don't really know what kind of Gengar JackO is. If he Specs, he guaranteed knocks me out with Shadow Ball right here. So Specs was the thing that I felt was the most impactful for my team. So I am going to switch into my dedicated switch into this, which is my Crocodile. As you see, it goes a little fast as we've been switching a lot, but JackO reveals Substitute, and this is. I thought it was all right at first, because I was like, okay, well, knockoff or Earthquake can kill this pretty easily, so I'm gonna go for. I believe I click knockoff here in case JackO gets like ridiculously aggressive and switches out, even though he's behind a Substitute. There's literally no reason for him to switch out. So I am gonna click knockoff here, but unfortunately, as we see here, JackO reveals Z Focus Blast, and I'm gonna eat my Chople Berry, but unfortunately, we end up dying to that Focus Blast, and yeah, that's 100% on me. That is 100% on me in prep. I thought, I just completely ignored the fact that Gengar could be Z, and I just thought that Specs was, if he was bringing Gengar, he was bringing Specs, because that can break my team the best. And I was guaranteed to live Focus Blast if he was Choice Specs. And granted, that was a roll for the Z Focus Blast, but Crocodile, like, I could have easily built that thing to live a Z Focus Blast with the Chople Berry. So that is 100% on me. That is 100% on me because I just thought, like, I just completely ignored that he could be Z. I just thought that he'd bring specs, and yeah, that's 100% on me. Either way, I am in a super duper predicament right now. He's a Gengar that still has a sub up and has a relatively really good matchup against me. So my plan at this point is basically to go into Crobat, get some Roost off, and see if I can potentially get some rolls to where I can live 2 Shadow Balls, even though it's pretty unlikely considering that I'm burned. But then after that, my plan is to basically sack it off and click Brave Bird to get damage behind the sub, and then basically break the sub after that with something, and then be able to pressure out with Bullet Punch for my Scizor. I believe on this Roost, yeah, I go to Roost and I get a bunch of HP back, and I think, okay, this might be the roll where I can potentially live 2, but unfortunately he gets a crit Shadow Ball. So at this point, Crobat's doing nothing, so I just have to get my damage off with my Brave Bird through Infiltrator behind the sub. And as we see here, JackO is going to go for Shadow Ball, and now my plan is basically I'm going to go into Rotom and Volt Switch to kill off the substitute, and then hopefully pressure out, because with the amount of bulk I have invested into Rotom, guaranteed lives any move barring a crit that the Gengar could go for. So I Volt Switch, break the sub, and I have to pressure this thing out with my Mega Scizor, because if he had gotten aggressive and like stayed in on my U-turn, then like the game was just over. I just lose to this Gengar. So I had to click Bullet Punch there to basically try to get like more differential down, or like try to get me at least a way that it looks like I can get back into this game. But unfortunately he goes into Shaman, and he is revealed to be Rocky Helmet Shaman, physically defensive. More than likely meant to be able to either switch into my Azumarill or more than likely my Crocodile, I suppose. But yes, unfortunately that Bullet Punch is a lot of damage. I'm going to click Defog here in case, once again, basically counting on JackO being really aggressive, because right now my only way of winning is like is just like being able for Rotom to get enough leftovers recovery back to be able to 1v1 the Celesteela, and then hopefully have enough to live a hit from Gengar, and the only way to do that is to get rid of the rocks. But unfortunately, JackO doesn't get aggressive, and he makes the very safe play and goes for Hidden Power Fire and kills my Scizor. And now at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I'm playing for differential. I did think about like not revealing the Whirlpool Perish Song tech, but at the same time, 4-0 win looks a lot better than a 5-0 win. So I am gonna be able. I'm just gonna basically cut my losses here. I trapped the Toxapex, which was the pretty obvious switch into Azumarill on his roster, and I am gonna get the Perish Song off. Like we do see here, I'm gonna speed this up a little bit as like I'm just basically gonna like go for Whirlpool as he scalds me, because like there's really nothing else to do, and then I'm gonna click Protect after to get the last turn, and then on the last turn I'm gonna switch out basically just the hope essentially that I can at least get more differential points. But yeah, as we see here, I believe our Perish counts are gonna go to next turn, so I'm gonna go back to the regular speed that I go at, and I go into my Mew because at this point his Gengar is looking like it can clean up, but after rocks and then the leftovers, I can actually, it's a roll for me to survive Gengar's Shadow Ball. So if he goes into that, then hopefully if I get a nice roll, it's actually pretty heavily in my favor. Like, it's a pretty high roll for him to knock me out, so hopefully I can get one more differential point in this game. But unfortunately JackO does get the high roll. I mean, it was bound to happen. So unfortunately we don't get the 3-0 loss. We unfortunately have to take a big 4-0 loss with this Gengar cleaning up the rest of my team. And yeah, this one hurt. This one really hurt. I normally don't like to start talking until the game's actually over, but like there's nothing else to say. This Gengar's just sweeping me at this point. Yeah, this one hurt. It's been a bit since I basically lost a game where I didn't have a foot in the door like at all, and man, it just I forgot how much those kinds of games hurt. Like, I guess really the only time I got my foot in the door was when I was able to like not actually trap, but essentially trap the Toxapex with my Crobat and click Super Fang here, because there was really at no point really was there a point where like JackO could safely switch out, because sure, he was getting 30% on the Toxapex, but then like he would risk losing 50% on another Pokemon, which would be really bad for him. So like I guess I had my foot in the door there, but like otherwise JackO pretty much like outplayed me. And honestly, the whole thing could have, not the whole thing, like I can't really say whether I would have won this game. It definitely would have been closer though, was if I had just realized that I need to make my Crocodile live Z Focus Blast after the Chople Berry, because at that point, when my Crocodile went down and and like his Gengar was still behind the sub, and his Gengar outsped my entire team, barring my Crobat, which was burned. That was the point where I was like, all right, I've like I am extremely far in the back. Like I'm really far in the back. Like this is all of, like the whole point. The whole reason I'm in the back is on me. So I have no one else to blame except for me. Even though yes, it was a roll, I could have still easily made I could have easily built Crocodile to make it live a Z Focus Blast after Chople Berry. But either way, so that was the thing that set me extremely far back in the game. That JackO was like miles ahead in that game, and then it's unfortunate because like at the crit special defense drop turn was basically the point where I was like, all right, yeah, I'm done. I've basically lost, and now I'm playing for differential. And it was more apparent once I couldn't defog the rocks away with my Scizor on his Shaman. So yeah, I had to take the differential point where I could with the Azumarill. But yeah, that one really hurts. It's been a while since I've like lost a game where I really had no business having a chance to win. But yeah, again, I don't want to take anything away from JackO. He played amazing, good game, my friend. But yeah, that game could have been a lot closer if I had just built my Crocodile correctly. But either way, that's in the past now. We have to look forward, and we need to go into... We're actually having an out of conference game next week. We're going up against Brendan, aka Shiny Typhoon. He is a longtime UPA coach. He unfortunately isn't off to the best start, but we absolutely cannot afford to take any opponent lightly, especially not with this, not in a league like this where the competition's really good, and especially not after a really big loss like this one. So yeah, keep your guys' eyes out on the channel next week for when the team builder for against Brendan goes live. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.